My name is VVO Mkhize, Victor Velapi Oti Pedlindaba Mkhize from Mlambo Munye. That's where I'm coming from. With our beautiful program, Umsamo Encounters. This is the program where we focus on our African issues, where we will focus on what is it that we lost somewhere, somehow. We are South Africa as an African country in Africa, and therefore we have to speak about African issues. And as we always say, we are the people of Africa. If we are the people of Africa, the question is, where do we come from? And what is it that we lost? We have lost our beautiful stories. We have lost the formulas, the rhythm, and the beauty of our languages. And also, we have even forgotten about our identity. In one or another, we have been so Eurocentric. And it is for the first time in this country, even prior to 1994, we have never had a fully independent program which focuses on African issues, whether it's radio or TV. I've been on radio for many years. I left radio in 1992. We've never had such a program. And also, even today, I'm back on radio. We don't even have such programs. Thank you very much to Afro Worldview for allowing Umsamo Institute to air such a program. And this is your program. We will actually share different stories. We will share what is happening in rural areas. We will share our African rituals. We will share the things that are happening in the corporate world. Why corporate world? When I joined the corporate world for the first time, you could only say there's a black person there, 1, 2, 3, or 4, as it is compared in nowadays. Today, we've got a lot of CEOs, black managers, whatever you call it, but there's a problem. The problem is we find them, all our executives, encountering problems. And also, as they encounter those problems, is there anything that we lost? NgesiZulu, we always say, "Ukuyobheka Umsamo." What is Umsamo? Umsamo is an umbilical cord. Umsamo is connectivity. Umsamo is interconnectivity. It has got nothing to do with ancestral worship. It has got to do with who are you? What is your identity? We are coming from different backgrounds in terms of religions, in terms of languages, in terms of many things. To open our program today, let's start with a very, very thorny issue, which is actually troubling anyone in this country, everyone in this country, the issue of religion. Our government appointed the Commission of Religions and Linguistics to regulate our religions, seeing the fact that it was getting out of hand. If ever, we had priests, we had reverends, all of a sudden the pastors. And in the past 2 years, we saw for the first time this Iron Lady, you may call her Umkabai, tough woman, leading this CRL. They were calling her names, whatever the case may be, because you were touching something that touches the spirit. No one other than the mother, Mkhwanazi-Xaluva, Thoko Mkhwanazi-Xaluva. I will call you Ma, because NgesiZulu, awusho kumuntu wesimama ukuthi sisi, whatever you say, Ma, mother. That's what we'll have to teach our people. And welcome to our first edition of the program. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where do you come from? Particularly, how did it happen that you joined CRL? I know you once worked for Thabo Mbeki's office, and all of a sudden I started seeing you at the CRL as the chairperson.
Well, maybe let me start by thanking you for having us tonight. To be our first guest, we feel very honored to be here. Well, historically, in terms of who I am and where I come from, I grew up in Durban, Mlazi. Went to school there, went to Adams College, Mkhwanazi-Xaluva, then went to Fort Hare and then started working as a teacher at some point in my life. But later on, I then worked in NGOs in terms of early childhood development. I was appointed, luckily enough, in the early mid-90s as the director for the rights of children in the presidency during Thabo Mbeki's time. I started while he was still the deputy president and then in the presidency. I then went into consulting thereafter on issues of how, for instance, culture affects rights. What is the relationship between culture and rights as embodied in the Constitution? Later on, I worked as the head of public education at the CRL Rights Commission. But then at some point, you know, I always say God has his own time and his own ways. I then left all of a sudden. You know, I felt, okay, I've done what needed to be done here. I'm resigning, I'm leaving. I remember it was about December in 2013. And then it was, late 2012, I left. 2013, I was consulting the whole year in 2013. And a little bit beginning of 2014. And then, you know, some NGOs and other people I've been working with in my consultancy work, a lot of NGOs that work in culture, others that work in religion, nominated me to be in the CRL Rights Commission. Fortunately, for some reason, I was then appointed to be chairperson of the CRL Rights Commission. I always say there were other dynamics that are beyond me that were at play. So I always say I'm here at this particular time for a particular reason.
You see, CRL was there before you.
This is the third commission, actually.
Right. Why I'm asking that is because most of the people, they will agree with me at home that they've never heard about CRL before you came in. Now, all of a sudden, this boom, here's CRL, Mkhwanazi-Xaluva, you know, fighting, inverted commas, with the pastors and so on. I always say each and every African person has what I call umngoma inside, the spirit, the driving spirit. You spoke about dynamics. What is it that it's in you?
Well, I always say I take after my mother, who is late now. And I always say, how would my mother deal with these issues? My mother, those that know her would know, she was a very precise woman. There were no grays in her life. It was either black or white. And I think that's where I come from. I come from speaking truth to power. No matter how powerful you are, you're not higher than God, you're not higher than my ancestors, you're not higher than my great-grandmother and my great-grandfather. I always say, you need to do what you need to do. If you put in a space, you have to do what you have to do. You can't be afraid all the time. You can't be made to be afraid all the time. You shouldn't allow to be intimidated into being passive and allowing even wrong things to happen. At some point in our lives, we are put in a particular space to do something. And we all need to say, I'm here today for what reason? What is it that made me resign from the CRL Commission? Because if I had been there, I wouldn't have been chairperson. People have their own theories about she left because somebody said she must leave and come back. No, it's because, you know, one day I woke up in the morning and something in me said, okay, you've done what you needed to do here, now it's time to go. And it's not as if, you know, resigning when you don't have any other job is an easy thing. But I felt there was a superpower somewhere that said, it's time now. And I left. And that's why maybe I respect the position I'm in, because I feel I was brought into this position by a much bigger thing that brought me there. It's not me who brought myself there.
Maybe if I may ask quickly, what is it that you think is possessed by an African woman? Because there are so many powerful women who have been there. That is why in my introduction I called you umkabayi, you know, and an iron woman, and so on and so on. What is that you think is there in an African woman where maybe other women do not give it out, maybe through intimidation or whatever?
You see, I always say when things become very hard, sometimes it's very hard, the CRL Commission, and people will see me like, you know, nothing affects her. At some point, I say, whoever brought me here, it's time now to give direction to this thing. You brought me here. This is where I am now. It's time for you to take over. That superpower needs to take over at some point. And I truly believe that God, together with my ancestors, brought me here.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Hold it there. You mentioned something very interesting, the ancestors. Do you believe in them?
I truly believe in ancestors. I believe that I come from somewhere.
Yes.
I didn't just arrive here
from a particular context.
Yes, I come from a long line of, you know, very strong women. I come from a long line of hard workers. So I believe my past, and even my past before I was here, those that were here before I was even born, are very close to God.
They always say, as I'm sitting here, it's Bedlindaba who is in me. Akhulumi uVVO, ukhulumi Bedlindaba, ikhehla elaliphila. Do you believe in that? Khona lesalukazi, that woman was so powerful. Maybe she lived around about in the 17th century or 18th century or whatever.
I truly believe there's something much bigger than me at play. People would think she's just a hard woman. But throughout my life, I never walk away from anything. People who know my history with the presidency will know. I'm no walkover. I've always believed that you must stand for what is right, no matter what.
Let's get into CRL now.
Yeah.
What was the mandate?
You see, the mandate of the CRL is very clear. You must promote and protect the rights of cultural, religious, and linguistic communities.
Right.
So you need to protect those rights. And I always say, in order to protect, you need to do something. If you say to someone, you need to protect my house here, no one must come here. People need to do brave things in order to protect other people. And you shouldn't waver, because the Constitution is very clear in terms of protection. Hence the name of the CRL Rights Commission. It's the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Communities. So it's not, I always say to people who say this thing has nothing to do with religious leaders or cultural leaders. It's got everything to do with communities. How do you protect communities, abantu, uluntu, and not necessarily the leadership thereof?
But you were perceived as if you were fighting the pastors. Most of the pastors, they actually they had to throw some number of bad words to you, naming you this and so on, and so on and so on. Were you fighting with them, or maybe were you actually, how can I put it, were you actually saying, are you doing the right thing? For instance, there were those who were forcing people to eat grass, to drink petrol and whatever, which takes me back to the issue of saying, to us, religion in the olden days was meant just to build morals and ethics. And also, is it doing the same thing today?
You see, the reality of the situation is the country had allowed certain things to happen for a very long time. And when for the first time you start saying to people, what you're doing is not right, you need to be accountable, you need to be responsible, you need to handle this thing with some dignity and respect. And not only just religious leaders, as in pastors and reverends and bishops, also traditional healers. They also were running out of hand in terms of adverts and deceiving people and taking away their money. And I think you need to be firm and not to be seen to be saying today what you're doing is wrong. And then tomorrow you say, oh, maybe we can live with it. You see, a nation is like raising children. If you've got children in your house and you say, doing this is not acceptable, and then the next day you say, okay, Mkhwanazi, because we are unhappy, you can then do it. You're sending mixed signals. What is right ought to be right, and what is wrong must be wrong, irrespective of what comes back to you. And I think when you're in a leadership position, you should expect that there will be things that come back to you, and you should be strong enough. You should have enough of a backbone, and fortunately, I've got a very strong family. My husband is fully supportive of me. So I must thank Xaluva for giving me and raising this husband for me. But I find that it's also you being very much objective, but also being firm and not changing your story when the going gets tough. The going gets tough sometimes and it becomes personal.
Yes.
But you need to say there are laws in this country that deal with those things. Lay criminal charges if you must. I've done that several times. Someone is in jail, 3 years, 3 months in jail as we speak, because you know, when we threaten someone, it's not allowed in this country. So we've got to use the laws to deal with such issues and not run away. Running away is not an option. The only option is if you feel this is too hot for you, walk away and give others the chance. I do say I've got a very good, strong team of commissioners there who are just as brave. Anywhere else, people would have said, hey, this woman is crazy. Let's tell the parliament that, hey, get rid of this one. We want peace around here. But they've been very supportive. And most of the stuff really has come from the commissioners themselves, as opposed to me. It's just that when you lead an organization, it's like we are alone. There are many of us, there are 12 of us there.
And there's a commissioner there who's an Isangoma.
Yes.
Was it by default or?
No, it was deliberate. Because the rights, cultural, religious, and linguistic rights. So the issue of Bukhona Ukobela in the commission, it's a very positive thing. I always say to people, if you're saying to me, Isangoma, you are actually insulting Izango.
Yes.
That someone can be at home and not do anything and wake up and say Isango.
Whereas it's a gift.
Yes, my ancestors have never said anything to me about Uba Isango. It's only certain pastors who have been saying Isango.
That's what they were saying, yes.
And it's not what they're supposed to be saying. It's actually bringing down Ubungoma so that other people think, oh, yeah, it's hard work to get there.
We will have, ladies and gentlemen at home, we will have one day a program that will actually focus on Izangoma, that will focus on Ugutwasa, what is really Ugutwasa is, and also how do we professionalize Ugutwasa as a gift coming from the ancestors. Now, leaving the religion on the other side, now I want us to look into the issue of a language. You know, we have got beautiful languages. You know, if you listen to the vendor-speaking people, the Tswanas, the Zulus, and so on, you find these formulas and so on. Let me share one joke with you, which might make you laugh. A colleague of mine, Podloza Nzimande, you know, when he was doing his teaching at Endaleni College, there was this lecturer. They were very scared of him. You know, it was Mr. Feljun. And he was, whenever he asked a question, he will actually pop up his eyes, and then he used... now, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to be teachers. Now, you tell me, if a child is playing truant, what will you do? And then they were giving different answers and what, and then Podloza said, no, I'm in trouble here, I don't know the answer. Then he said, no, sir, I think I know the answer. You know, at that time, it means things will be so cool like check, therefore you'll have to look cousin. And then he said, thank you, sit down. Oh. That's the best answer. Meaning that, no, things will be... Yes, you know. So these are the exciting... We have got different things in our languages. What is it that you have done when it comes to languages as linguistic?
Yes.
Because I'll be honest with you, whenever you go to the mall, you find black parents going with their black children speaking English, but you find African-speaking people.
You know, one thing we've said as the CRL Rights Commission is that there's an economic dynamic at play here. Parents normally want the best for their children. And then you find that the image we're portraying out there is that if you need a job, if you're going to move ahead in life, you need to have English, which is the reality. Who holds the power, the economic power?
Yes.
Who's driving this aeroplane of economics? The drivers need you to be extremely fluent in English. It starts when you are being interviewed. So if you can't be interviewed in isiZulu noma uskipha ngamakhaya, it's going to work against you. And what we've said as the CRL Rights Commission is that you need to go back to basics.
Right.
And say, for every language to be valued, it must be economically viable. It shouldn't be a useless language that even if you know and you can speak it fluently, they then employ someone because they've got a Model C accent and they sound so fluent in English, and your English is not like sounding like the Queen's language. And the day in this country we face that reality and start shifting the economic powers and make sure that the issue of language is at the center of, economic development. We always say radical economic transformation. I always say meaningful radical economic transformation should have culture and language attached to it. How our children perform in interviews, they'll tell you, hey, this one was sheepish, he wasn't even looking at me, he was looking everywhere else. But it's because that's how they are raised.
Yes, definitely.
The culture there says, stare at me. Even if I'm older than you, keep staring at me to show that, you're going to be truthful and reliable. So it's that when I say we need a serious radical transformation in where the money is sitting. Because if you're moving into a foreign environment, we're in Africa here.
Yes.
There's no other Africa. So you're here and you've been raised at home to behave in a particular way when they are elders. And you behave in that way. And it's not going to fly. So you've got to know, I've got to be schizophrenic here, I must know what works where. When I'm at home, I'll deal with it this way, but when I'm looking for a job, I must stare at people. And if you need to do that, you are already uncomfortable because you're doing something you're not used to doing. Yes. But it's because you need this job and you know what these people expect from you. It's those little things that as a nation we need to start looking into. We need to start educating those that have power.
Yes.
Economically to say, when people behave in a particular way, it's their culture. When people say, I can't come to work because, my father has passed away, you need to understand why.
Yes.
You need to understand why she's at home and not coming. And you're saying, but your father is being buried on Saturday. That Saturday, so why are you at home? You see, all those things, I think we need to start educating one another if this country is going to move forward united.
But just to add on that, I think we have to have or engage academics, authors, who can put these things in writing. For instance, in 2008, when I was an associate professor at Cedar City campus, I published a book called Umsamo, the New African Business Literacy, where I was actually talking about African patriotism. Like, for instance, you see if Kaizer Chiefs is actually playing, then the person says, siyadlala namhlanje, if you are part of that. And also because when I was at Nissan, I went to Japan and I was trained on Kaizen. And then you see the Kaizen says, home is part of work and work is part of home, and all those sorts of things. So you are mentioning something very interesting, that there are certain things that we need to put in writing, that we need to put down. Like you are mentioning an issue which is troubling a lot of people today, like for instance, I have to take 7 days, and therefore my CEO or my managers, because he happens to be white or whatever, he doesn't understand, then he will say, Oi, kuqhamuka phi lokho. Now, a quick one. 2 or 3 weeks back, you had a workshop on African religion. Why African religion, and what was the outcome?
Well, we felt that the whole issue around African religion is not properly understood in the country, because part of what we're struggling with is it about ubungoma, African religion, or is it about spirituality? And how do you deal with those things? And how do you make sure that things that we value as Africans, and that those people who have chosen to be purely African religion, their vision is also respected. We're also looking at issues like Stats SA and the census. When we receive the census papers, most of the time they come to you, they see you're African, and then they say, oh, which church do you go to? And they don't even give you an option to say, yeah, go to Umsamo now. Because the reality of the matter is you could be going to church, but you also respect your ancestors. And we're saying the census should accommodate both, because most Africans do both.
Yes.
Yes, they do both. They go to church, but they respect their ancestors and they do what needs to be done where their ancestors are concerned. And we need to understand that this is a spiritual thing.
Yes.
And how do you deal with issues of spirituality? Even as we are just counting people, basic things like that. But also the issue of representation. We had SABC and other broadcasters there. The issue of religious programs play usually on Sundays. But you find that African religion programs would play at 4:30 in the morning.
Yes.
Why is it that our things were ashamed of them and they must be done in the dark? And then by 8, 9, then you play other religions, Christianity, Jewish, Islam, etc. What makes it acceptable for us to think our things are to be done in the dark? Set the clock if you need to listen to this one. It's not going to be played during prime time. And it's those things that we need to start questioning as South Africans, that every religion is equal. The Constitution is very clear. So why are you favoring some and not all? So it's those questions that we're saying, what are the issues in African religion?
There are so many people across life abanezibonakaliso ezenzakalayo, umuntu athi ukuthi nokuthi kuzokwenzeka, kodwa uma ngabe ukhuluma omunye athunywe kuthiwa hamba uyotshela usibanibani ukuthi nokuthi uthi uma umtshela umuntu athi umuntu hayi, omunye asabe ukuyosho. These are the kinds of stories that we will be celebrating in this program. These are kinds of stories that we need from you, because uma ukhuluma ngomuntu omnyama, I always say akekho umuntu o gifted like an African person. We are all Africans, and therefore I will always keep on asking one and the same question in this program: what happened? Kwenzekani? Now, I'm taking this opportunity to wish you good luck, and also to say thank you very much for being with us in the studio. Thank you very much. That's VVO. Good night.